cut the fucking piece of drywall right. You know, you gotta cut the right size on there. You gotta find a place to nail it. Then you gotta put the spackle on. The spackle always gets cracked at the corners, so you gotta get silicone or some kind of caulking gun to fill it in, and then spackle it again, and then you gotta sand it down. Then you gotta paint it, and it looks like shit. Doesn't matter. It looks like shit at the end of the day. You know, you're never gonna get it right. How'd I get into that? Oh, because I'm tired. I am actually really tired. I did that, then I went to the gym today, and then I did this podcast for you guys because I put in work like that, right? But we're going to take a short break. We're going to let this Kyle Nash drop come in, and we'll get into it with Joe Wedra. Bear with us.
You're listening to NGSC Sports Radio. Hear us live on ngscsports.com, where you can get awesome analysis for all things sport. Or check out our podcasts on iHeartRadio, Spreaker, iTunes, TuneIn, and much more. For our latest videos, head to NGSC Sports YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter at NGSC Sports and like us on Facebook. NGSC Sports. We never stop.
And we're back to the only show that matters. And with me right now is my man, the future of all sports media, Joe Wedra. How you feeling, Joseph?
Doing good, G. Ready for a weekend of bowl games and mediocre NFL football.
Yeah, it kind of seems like that's all the NFL is throwing at us is mediocre football, or maybe it's because Baltimore and Chicago are the definition of mediocre or just below that level.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, listen, well, you're used to it, okay? You're used to it. I'm not trying to be mean, but you're kind of used to that mediocre Bears football. I'm not. This is the first year for me. Literally, the last time they were losing, I was like 11 years old. So this is kind of new territory for me. So I guess I just had to look to you because you're pretty used to losing seasons over there.
All right, we're going to get off this topic. You're being a smart ass. Obviously, this bowl game's coming up, but I wanted to talk really quick about the Army-Navy game. It ended up being a really exciting game, and in my weekly article, Beating Vegas, I said take Army and the under, and both of them knocked out. I mean, this game never really goes over 45 points. And this is a rivalry game. These guys, that they have very similar offensive mindsets, so it's kind of easy to stop each other. And I really thought the 24 points was ridiculous to lay out because if you looked at how both these teams played Air Force, who had a great rushing attack this year, like both of these teams held their own against Air Force. You know, even Army, you know, who's not on the level of Navy. So I gave Army the benefit of the doubt to cover that plus 24, and he did. I'm guessing you watched the Army-Navy game too, right?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. It was kind of a fun game to watch. We kind of went into it kind of with tepid expectations, not really expecting anything big, but I actually enjoyed the game. I thought it was pretty good. It was fun to see Army put up a fight, and I mean, that they did. They didn't look like a 2-9 team heading into it. And I think you kind of saw through the year they maybe weren't that bad. And they showed up to play, and it was pretty impressive. I mean, good for Navy getting the win, but I think really good for everybody because we got to see a game that I think was much better than a lot of us expected. Navy, they held, you know, it was surprising. I'm not going to lie. To see Keenan Reynolds get bottled up that much by the Army defense, honestly, it was just fun. It was really fun.
No, it was a good game. I'm glad I watched it. So moving on to this week, we got five bowl games this week. December 19th, I should say, this weekend. So let's start right here. Arizona, New Mexico. Excuse me. Arizona's a 9.5-point favorite. You could say this is a home game for New Mexico, though. I mean, of course, the Arizona fans will probably travel because it's not that far, but the New Mexico fans should be there. But do New Mexico fans really care about New Mexico football is the question. And honestly, like this is the kind of game that can go either way. I just think Arizona comes with a more balanced offensive attack. New Mexico is pretty one-dimensional. They just want to run the ball. Arizona comes a little bit more with that balance, and they're a little more seasoned. And when it comes to these bowl games, you got to look at which team is going to be motivated to play. And Rich Rod is the kind of coach that motivates his team to play anybody. So I think I actually like Arizona laying down the 9.5 points and covering that spread against New Mexico.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at that spread. I think Arizona's the better team, and they should win big. I just think that when you got to look at New Mexico, you do have to look at the team that's played pretty well recently. They put up 47 against Air Force in their last game and won, and they really won 3 of their last 4 games, their only loss was a 7-point loss to Colorado State. So, I mean, New Mexico playing good football, but overall, Arizona's just a better team. Like you mentioned, that balanced offensive attack, really, you can't underlook that. Quarterback, a new Solomon, really, really good this year. 18 touchdowns, I think, only 4 interceptions, something like that. So Solomon's playing well. New Mexico really doesn't have that factor guy on the offensive side of the ball. So I think Arizona probably outscores them, and it's probably a big win. But I don't know. I think in these bowl games, you always just have to kind of take that with a grain of salt and realize that this is their last game of the year, and really anything can happen.
Yeah. The next one is kind of odd. It's the Las Vegas Bowl, obviously in Las Vegas, Nevada. It's BYU against Utah, which are two teams that for everything, considering what these teams stand for, these universities stand for, it's just funny to see these two teams in Las Vegas. These are probably the two universities that won't get in trouble at all spending a night in Vegas. But I'm kind of disappointed with this because it's BYU and Utah. Like, we've seen this. This is really nothing new. I mean, this is a game that we've seen. And with BYU to come into this as a 2.5-point underdog against a Utah team that was the top team in the nation at one point. Of course, you look at BYU; they were battling injuries all year long. This is still a rivalry to some degree, so they're going to come out and play. I love Utah though at -2.5 over here. I don't think BYU puts them 1 to 10 points.
See, I think that's pretty interesting because I have BYU in this game in a close one, only because I think that when you look at their schedule this year, like you said, they have been battling injuries, but they only lost 3 games. One of them was to Michigan in a rough game, but the other 2 were a 1-point loss to, at the time, number 10 UCLA, and a 4-point loss to Mizzou late in the season. Now, you don't want to lose to Mizzou. That's obviously bad on the record, but 9-3 this year. They had a pretty decent schedule. They're putting up points. I like this BYU team, and I think obviously you got to look at Utah's defense, really stout group, but they put up 17 points to UCLA, lost. They barely beat Colorado in the last game of the year, and they lost to Arizona the week before that. So really they could have had a 3-game skid that included losses to Colorado and Arizona. I'm not sold on Utah at this point in the season. I think overall, BYU a better team. They put up 51 points in the last 2 weeks. I like BYU.
You know, I don't like the slight you took at Colorado. I actually think Colorado got they actually almost pulled off the upset against USC. I actually like Colorado this year. You know, are they even bowl eligible though? Did they get 6 wins this year?
They're 4-9.
I'm not even sure.
They're 4-9.
Wow, really? Damn, I like them. You know what I based it on? There were so many huge spreads, and I took them, and they covered because they weren't that bad. Yeah, they weren't that bad. So for me, if they covered, those are wins. So to me, they got to be like a 7-win team. They're like a 7-win team to me, Colorado. The next one is actually a bowl game that I actually started writing up today. The Camellia. How do you pronounce it? The Camellia Bowl? Because I kept on wanting to say the Camilla Bowl, but whatever. It's at the Crampton Bowl. And it's at Montgomery, Alabama. That's just confusing. But it's Ohio University against Appalachian State. This was an interesting one because I've liked Ohio this whole year. Appalachian State is a team though, like you gotta like their defense, their offense, but you gotta look at the schedule they kind of played. Ohio University has got to get really good FBS teams, and they've been 7-point, 10-point underdogs that have covered or at least hung with them. I like Ohio's chances over here just win outright against Appalachian State.
Yeah, this one's interesting. I think the two teams you can make the argument either way. I go with Appalachian State just because I see a defense that's only given up 18.3 points a game. But like you said, the competition hasn't been nearly as great. The only loss this year, big time, was to Clemson. That was week 2, and then they lost to Arkansas State. It's not a pushover, but you're right. I mean, when you look at quality wins, I'm not really sure you can put up any this year. As far as Ohio goes, they beat NIU last week, beat Ball State. I mean, they played pretty well in the MAC, even though they did pick up 4 losses. Still a good team. So I know you could go either way over here. I'm going with Appalachian State out of the Sun Belt just because I think that overall they're a better and more balanced offense. I think Taylor Lamb, the quarterback, really doing some good things. 29 touchdowns, only 8 picks on the year. So I think they have a better passing attack. So that's why I go with Appalachian State. But you certainly could go either way in this game. Like you said, Ohio's no pushover.
Moving on to the next game we're going to talk about, and that is the New Orleans Bowl at the Superdome in New Orleans, Louisiana. And that's Arkansas State against Louisiana Tech. I think Arkansas State has a good running back or something. I know nothing about this game, Joe, so please enlighten me.
Yeah, Arkansas State's a really good team. They went 9-3 this year, won the Sun Belt. I'll tell you what, your running back, you're absolutely right on. Michael Gordon, so good this year. He definitely eclipsed 1,000 yards, double-digit touchdowns. That's a good team, but the problem is that the passing attack just hasn't been there. The quarterback's only completing about 57% of passes. That's why I side with Louisiana Tech, because the name you're familiar with over there is Jeff Driscoll, the quarterback, trying to make a name for himself. And he did this year, 300. I think over 3,500 yards this year. I'm looking at it now, 24 TDs, only 8 interceptions, and they have a good running back in Kenneth Dixon, who scored 17 times this year. So I'm going with Driscoll and Louisiana Tech. They got a really good offense, and Arkansas State. I don't believe him at this point, just because when you do have a passing attack, as weird as it sounds, with good passing attack with Jeff Driscoll, I kind of take that over a passing attack that's non-existent over at Arkansas State. So a good game, but oddly enough, I'm giving the edge to Jeff Driscoll.
I think I got to look back to the days of the G. Stelio Sports Tower, because you definitely badmouthed Jeff Driscoll back in the day. So
I probably did. But he was playing in the
congratulations. Yeah, so congratulations to him for finally being in your good favor. The last bowl for this weekend is the Cure Bowl. It's at the Citrus Bowl in Florida. It's San Jose State versus Georgia State. Georgia State's a 3-point underdog. Georgia State, I think, kind of hard on them this year. But if you look at them, I really like their quarterback, Nick Arbuckle, threw for 4,000 yards, 26 touchdowns. And the thing about Georgia State that I like, their offense, aside from Arbuckle, that there is not one defining person on that team. Everybody touches the ball on that depth chart. From the receivers to, I think they go 4 deep on their running backs. Everybody touches the ball, and everybody's pretty decent in their system. And they're going to need to do that, because San Jose State actually has a really good secondary. But I really think Georgia State's going to spread them out too much. For most parts of the game, that I can see a couple of 4 wide and a couple of 4 wide and a running back that's a halfback dive, 5-6 yard carry. The one guy I wanted to say on San Jose State, though, is the running back, Tyler Irvin. I mean, I'm sure you're more familiar with Tyler Irvin than I am, but I was looking at his numbers this year. He ran for over 1,400 yards. It looks great, but, Joe, his numbers are so weird, because one week he'll get 50, another week he gets 200, then he'll get 22, then he'll get 160. It's one of the most bizarre outputs you'll see all season. But I'm taking Georgia State plus 3.
Absolutely. Tyler Irvin's a guy I'm very familiar with, a really crafty senior. He put up 300 yards earlier in the year against Fresno State. I think he touched the ball over 40 times, 300 yards, and I'm pretty sure he put up 3 TDs in that game. And then you come back, I believe it was 3 weeks after, and he put up like 22 yards against San Jose State, or San Diego State on like 17 carries. This guy, you're 100% right. I had this written down earlier. It's so weird. You never know what you're going to get out of him. And I think that's a byproduct of San Jose State not doing anything really great. They just do a lot of things pretty decently, and I think that's why you see their 5-7 record where it is. They don't do anything great, whereas Georgia State, like you said, they have the upside. What do they have to lose in a bowl game like this? I'm tempted to take Georgia State. I know it's kind of tricky because you're going against, San Jose State, obviously playing the better competition than Georgia, but you know what? Give me Georgia State. I'm just more convinced. Like you said, Arbuckle, that quarterback, really, really good talent.
I think Georgia State still wants to make up for that opening week loss to Charlotte University as well. I mean, that was
absolutely.
I think they definitely want to make up for that one. But notice the San Jose State, and obviously I'm not saying they're all playing on the same level, but you got to think of San Jose State as a very, very lowercase LSU, because their whole offense is built off this rush attack, and they have a good defense. But if you force them to throw the ball, they're stuck. They can't move the ball through the air. So in a way, they're a lowercase version of LSU. I think it's a pretty good setup for them. But regardless, I love Georgia State in this one.
You're actually, you're actually missing one bowl game. You're leaving it out because you're not giving it any love. It is the Celebration Bowl. It's the first game of the weekend at 12 p.m. on ABC. It's the North Carolina A&T Aggies against the Alcorn State Braves. Now, I know nothing about these two teams, so all I'm going to say is this. North Carolina A&T does not sound like a team that's going to win. Alcorn State does because, well, it's just cooler. So I'm going with Alcorn State because their mascot, it sounds like acorn, and I just picture like the trees, like Stanford. So that's what I'm going with. I'm going with Alcorn State.
Yeah, what was it? It's NC what?
North Carolina A&T. Agriculture and Tech.
Yeah. There's
no way I'm taking
A phone company against an acorn. All right. Yeah.
Yep.
Always
pick the acorn.
There's probably a reason why I totally omitted that name from memory.
But all right.